My name is Caoimhe Gleeson, and I'm from the National Office for Human Rights and Equality Policy with the HSE and with the Quality Improvement Division. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the online launch of the explainer video of the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act 2015. We had planned to have the launch in April of this year, but had to move it to an online launch because of COVID-19. So thank you all, particularly our participants, for your patience with this. Also, due to COVID-19, our CEO, Mr. Paul Reid, is unable to join us in person today, but he's made a recording which we will share with you shortly. Dr. Philip Crowley, who is the National Director of the Quality Improvement Division, is going to join us for the start of the launch, but also because of COVID-19 has to join the NEFID meeting this morning for the remainder of the launch, but he will be here with us for a short time. I'm delighted to say that we've had over 1,100 people sign up for today's webinar, which is fantastic. And I'm not sure how many are with us at the moment. I'm sure Jacqueline will let us know just in a moment about that. So welcome to everybody from all corners of Ireland and those that are joining us from other jurisdictions, including our guests, the Shaler family, who are joining us from Germany today. Before we start, there's a few housekeeping arrangements I need to go through with you. First of all, the webinar will finish at 12 p.m. today. The chat box function is open. You'll see that on the side of your screen. We'll try to help you with technical issues through this function. So there's a number of people that are supporting us today: Jacqueline, Ross, Elaine, Orla and Marie, who will be able to take questions. So when you have technical questions, can you put it in the chat box to all panelists, not just the host? Otherwise, we may not be able to get to you. We also invite you to post comments or feedback throughout the event. I'll try and give mention to some of these if time allows. If you want to change the screen view, you can go to the top right-hand corner of the video screen, and it'll give you a number of options. We'd advise you to use grid view so you'll be able to see other presenters or other people that are going to be on the launch today. If you're having any issues with sound or internet connectivity, we'd advise you to dial into the webinar. The dial-in details will be in the chat box. Sometimes the sound may be cleared, particularly if you're in an area where the broadband isn't great. The launch is being recorded and it'll be made available on assisteddecisionmaking.ie next week. We'd encourage you to share this link with colleagues and friends who may be interested in it. The video that we're going to be showing today is also available on this link as well, and it is available to share as widely as possible. We have been awarded 2 CPD points from the RCPI and 4 CEU points from the Nursing and Midwifery Board. Over the coming days, you will receive an email with your certificate of attendance and details on how to apply for your CPD points in relation to this. All of our guests are joining us virtually, so we may have connectivity issues. Please bear with us in case this happens as we try and resolve those. Also, we'll be showing 2 videos, one from our CEO, Paul Reid, and one about the explainer video. There may be a short delay while we're setting this up, so please bear with us on that. So by way of background, we started working on this explainer video in 2008. Little did we know then how lucky we were to be able to bring such a diverse and rich group of people together to make such a short film about such an important act. We're very grateful to have had this time. We would not be able to do this at this time. And we're all very grateful to those that participated and gave so generously of their time. And you'll be able to see what I'm talking about very shortly. And we'll say more about this later. This morning, we're joined by a number of guests who will share their own perspective on why the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act 2015 matters to them. And why commencement of this act is so important, including a number of guests who were in the video itself, and we're delighted that they're able to join us today. To start, I'd like to invite Dr. Philip Crowley, who's the National Director of the National Quality Improvement Team, and he's also acting National Co-Lead of the Public Health Response to COVID-19, to give us his opening address. From the moment the Act was passed in late 2015, Philip has ensured that efforts to prepare for commencement were given priority by the HSE. And in the years that have passed, he has continued to fully support the work to enable commencement. This has not been easy, given the continued delays with commencement and more recently pressures from COVID-19 related work. However, Philip remains one of our greatest supporters and we're very grateful to have his time here today. So thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Caoimhe, and good morning, everybody. Wonderful to see, I guess, the degree to which our citizens and our staff are so supportive of this act by signing in today and learning more about this really, really critical act, the Assisted Decision Making Act, brackets capacity. It's really comes to the core, I think, of how we care for people in our society, how we work with people in our society, and how we engage. It essentially is based on the premise that capacity exists to make any decision on our own lives until proven otherwise. And even when capacity is in any way hampered, that we must put in place every support possible to enable the individual to make the crucial decisions about their own lives. And this video that we're launching today, I think, really brings to life, I think, very, very effectively the importance of this act to our citizens, to our people. I'd really like the Office of Human Rights and Equality Policy in my own team, Caoimhe, Jackie, Mary, Ross have been helping, Orla and Elaine, and also Angela, Carol and Deirdre, who helped prepare the video, because the work they do is sometimes a little bit unsung maybe, but absolutely crucial, and kind of steers, I think, the organisation in the right direction in relation to issues of human rights and equality, things that are really important to me, and I think very important to everybody else who's on this webinar today. So I think when we think about the Act, it's absolutely critical that it is commenced. We have been working away on it to ensure that people are prepared to utilise it effectively to protect the rights and interests of everybody who we deal with in the HSE. And I think it behoves government now to commence this act as quickly as possible, so as we can get on with a more rights-based approach to how we deliver care to our citizens. The video itself, I had a sneak preview of it. It's a really beautiful video, I have to say. It's quite emotional. I'd really like to thank Damien O'Donovan and his mother Mary, Claire Hendrick, the Shaler family, Margaret Sweeney, and others who gave of their time and gave us their insights and their perspectives to really make a very powerful statement in favour both of this act and in favour of effectively implementing it. And we in the Equality Improvement Team and particularly the Office of Human Rights and Equality Policy will be continuing to help, I think, our health services over the coming weeks and months to be really well prepared for the commencement of this act, whenever that happens, and which should be as soon as possible, and to apply it as effectively as possible to protect the rights of our service users and of our citizens. So I'd like to hand you back with that to Caoimhe, and to thank you all for participating in today, and really to reiterate my thanks to the Office of Human Rights and Equality for the wonderful work that they do, and for this video as well. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Philip. And now we're going to hear from our CEO, Mr. Paul Reid, via a virtual clip, which Ross is going to play for us now. So thank you, Ross. Just give us a moment while Ross sets it up. Okay, and fingers crossed that this will all go well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, I can't join you today, but I did want to send a message to you all at the launch of this important resource for staff. The legislation for assisted decision making impacts many people who use our health and social care services. It's crucial that we support our patients and the people who use our services to have autonomy when it comes to their care and their treatment. The explainer video is an excellent support tool for staff who will need to know the detail of the Act. I want to take this opportunity to thank the staff, the service users and volunteers who took the time to take part in the video. It's refreshing to hear about the importance of the Assisted Decision Making Act from a broad range of stakeholders. The core principle of this Act ensures the person receiving care is at the centre of all decisions. I know that we all want to ensure that this becomes part of our culture and health and social care every day. As CEO of the HSE, I'm fully committed to supporting the implementation of the Act. The past few months have shown how important it is to identify the person you want to advocate on your behalf if something happens to affect your decision-making capacity. We're all vulnerable to losing this and at any time without warning, so the commencement of this Act should be our collective priority. Again, I'd like to wish you all the best with the launch today. I now invite you to sit back and enjoy watching the Assisted Decision Making Explainer video.
We all make decisions, big and small, every day of our lives. Most of us are able to make these decisions by ourselves. There are many people accessing our health services whose ability to make certain decisions about their life and choices may be affected by a disability, an accident, a medical procedure, or a chronic illness, either on a temporary or permanent basis. A new law called the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act 2015 has been passed, which gives people the right to be assisted to make decisions with legally recognised supports regardless of disability or any condition which may affect their decision making capacity. The Act is for everyone over the age of 18 who has difficulty now or who might in the future have difficulty making decisions. A number of decisions are covered by the Act, including day-to-day decisions, what to eat and what to wear, through to more complex decisions like whether to buy or sell a house, or to have a surgical procedure, or what to do with a large sum of money. All services are covered by the Act: banking and financial services, legal services, and health and social care. A number of key features of the Act include: a person has capacity until proved otherwise. A person should be supported to make decisions as far as possible. Information should be provided to a person in a way that is easily accessible. A person has the right to make an unwise decision if they choose to. A person can make an advanced decision about their healthcare treatment, which will apply when she or he can no longer make those decisions. The wards of court system will be abolished and a new system will be put in place. A new body called the Decision Support Service has been set up to oversee the Act and is based in the Mental Health Commission. The Decision Support Service has a number of functions, including public awareness of the Act and supervision of the decision-making support arrangements.
The Act puts me in charge of my life. It means I can get to make decisions when I want it. This Act is great because this is my life and I have the same voice as everyone.
This Act matters to me as Damien's mum because it makes it clear that Damien has the right to make his own decisions, which is really important. It also means that we can get information and advice that he might need to support him in his decision making, now and in the future. The Act also provides reassurance for me that when I'm not with Damien, that he'll be able to get appropriate support to make decisions in relation to all aspects of his life, but that his right to make his own decisions will be safeguarded.
I'm currently making my wishes and preferences known to my husband and sons. If I suffer a serious illness or there is an emergency which affects my ability to communicate, my family will know what I would want, and with this knowledge will be able to support me while at the same time making sure that my rights as a human being are respected.
This new Act encourages us to plan and think ahead, which is so important for us all. The Act will allow me to be legally recognised as Veronica's support person.
The Act allows people to plan ahead and put in place legal binding arrangements about the healthcare treatment they do not want when they no longer have the capacity to make this decision.
This Act matters to me because I will be able to support individuals that I work with to make their own choices in life and to be more involved in what happens to them.
This Act matters to me as a dentist. It is important that the patients I treat have a full understanding of their dental care and treatment options, and that they are supported and enabled to make decisions in relation to their own oral health.
The acts that matter to me because I won't lose all my rights to make my own decision, which is what can happen if a person is made a ward of court. Even if I can't make my own decisions, the Act keeps my wishes and values and beliefs at the centre. There can be no decision about me without me.
Assumptions should not be made about a person's ability to make and communicate decisions based on an initial diagnosis, especially in the case of a severe acquired brain injury, where the condition of the person can improve over time.
Pádraig enjoys life, and a big part of that is being able to make decisions and to let us know what he wants. These decisions range from basic day-to-day decisions, what he wants to eat, what he wants to watch on TV, to more complex decisions about care and treatment. And sometimes Pádraig's decisions surprise us.
I represent public health and community nursing services. We as nurses hold a very privileged position of entering into people's homes and of witnessing the reality of how patients live their lives. Therefore, I wholeheartedly embrace the opportunities that the Act will bring for patients to shape their healthcare decisions. The Act provides an opportunity for patients to have a voice and represents an approach which appreciates the values, needs and preferences of each and every patient. This is achieved when patients are facilitated to become informed decision makers and exercise their choice in a shared decision-making process.
The Act provides legislation for advanced healthcare directives. This is where a statement is made by a person with capacity, setting out his or her will and preferences about medical treatment, which may arise in the future at a time when they no longer have the capacity to make decisions. It will guide the treating doctor to care for the patient in a way that the patient would have wanted, and I believe that will be very helpful in general practice. The area that it will have huge relevance will be transferring persons from nursing homes to acute hospitals who do not have the capacity to say no.
Why this Act matters to me. If my mental health deteriorates, I lack the capacity to make decisions for myself. I nominate my husband Pádraig to act on my behalf in carrying out my decisions and wishes if I'm unable to do it myself.
And this Act means that Margaret, the person I love and support, will feel happier and empowered if her wishes are both respected and listened to.
This Act means that the people in my care can be assured that they have the right to access information in a way that can maximise their understanding, and they are to be given more time to understand that information, to help them to make decisions.
The Act recognises that people need formal supporters to help them make decisions. These formal supporters are called interveners. A person can have a number of supporters to assist them with different decisions.
Nothing about me without me.
Nothing about me without me.
Nothing about me without me.
Nothing about Pádraig without Pádraig. Do you agree with that, Pádraig? Yes.
Thank you for that, Ross. And again, I'd like to thank all of the participants. As you can see, we've many people that contributed their days to participate in the video. If any of you have been involved in filmmaking it, you know that it's not just a couple of moments, it's a full day's work to do that. And we had people from all over the country that contributed, and we're so grateful to have that, and we're so grateful to be able to share it with yourselves. So we're now going to hear from Anya Flynn, who is the Director of the Decision Support Service, which is the body that oversees the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act 2015. Anya was appointed in 2017 and has the challenging task of establishing the Decision Support Service and bringing our human rights obligations into the 21st century. We're really delighted that Anya is able to join us today. So thank you, Anya.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much to the HSE team for having me today. I'm really delighted to be here for the launch of this. I think it's going to be an excellent resource, and I must compliment in particular the contributors, the experts by experience who appear in the explainer video. I think it really does make it a very rich tool, and makes the contribution of their personal stories makes it so much more vivid and powerful and moving. So I think I'm going to have the opportunity now to share. Okay, so yeah, we can go to the first one there then, Jacqueline, thanks very much. Now, I hope that you're seeing Michael D. Higgins standing beside a Christmas tree. And if you are, then, as I say on this slide, the full title of the Act is it's an Act to provide for the reform of the law relating to persons who require or may require assistance in exercising their decision-making, whether immediately or in the future. As we know, this was signed into law right at the end of 2015, but it isn't yet fully commenced. Estimates, and those of the Department of Justice's estimates, suggest that as many as 200,000 adults could benefit from the new supports under the Act. And that number comprises people who have intellectual disability, acquired brain injury, difficulties arising from mental health conditions, or age-related cognitive impairment. But that isn't for a moment to say that anyone necessarily of those 200,000 plus people necessarily will need to avail of the Act or the new supports. That will depend very much on their personal circumstances or the decisions which they need to make. It's also the case that it is an Act for everyone, in the sense that outside of those 200,000 people, any one of us could, through accident or illness, at a later time in our lives, require these supports. We may have decision-making capacity difficulties of our own. So as the explainer video makes clear, it is in every sense an Act for everyone. And it's inspired very much by the principles of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The convention, which was ratified by Ireland in 2015, requires the state to promote, protect and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights by all persons with disabilities. And disability is broadly defined within the convention. And it mandates that state parties, so Ireland, must recognise that persons with disabilities enjoy legal capacity on an equal basis with others in all aspects of life. As Damien says in the video, he enjoys human rights the same as everyone else, and I don't think that anyone would argue with that. Yeah, now sometimes this Act has been described as bringing about a big cultural shift, and I think certainly there are some aspects of it which are new and to an extent challenging. We see within the Act that capacity is not based on a medical diagnosis, and certainly in the past capacity has been seen very much as a medical issue. We also see the abolition of the status that exists in wardship at the moment, this idea of a person of unsound mind. And in the explainer video, Claire Hendrick has spoken about what it meant to her to come within that status finding, where effectively, when she was made a ward of court, all of her decision-making, the independent decision-making that she'd always been able to exercise, kind of devolved away from her. We also have, I think it's important that we dispel this idea of the next of kin myth, as I've heard it referred to. There is a well-established but really unfounded idea that our next of kin have some sort of status as a substitute decision maker, or that somebody in our family is able to step in and supply consent where consent is required. And it can be a surprise to people to learn that that really isn't built on anything at all. And access to the new supports under the Act, we would say, must be a feature of care, so that people who are availing of health and social care services should be entitled to call upon the Act and to put in place the support arrangements which it provides, should they require to do so. And then on the other side, providers of care must be amenable to dealing with these new support arrangements and to engaging with these new category decision supporters. But I think it's important not to make too much of this idea of a cultural shift, or to say that something very dramatic is coming down the tracks, because in many respects what the Act does is to give effect to principles and an ethos and a whole approach that we should already be following. And there are some things that are put on a statutory basis within the Act which are with us already, like the presumption of capacity and the functional assessment of capacity. They are already the standard, and we see them already in policy. Do we always apply a presumption of capacity? I know that the Shaler family and their contribution to the video do make the point it's really important not just to rush to judgment because of somebody's presentation. And I've also heard Damien Donovan's mother Mary say separately that she was aware of a doctor deferring to her and speaking to her in relation to Damien's care on one occasion, rather than engaging directly with Damien himself based on a presumption on how Damien presented. So that shouldn't be the case. And person-centred care and support, as I think we know, is already the gold standard. We should already be involving people in their decision-making as far as possible. Now, I hope that changed there. The Frida principles are sometimes invoked as the proper human rights-based approach in health and social care. And those are the principles of fairness, respect, equality, dignity and autonomy. Again, very much called out in the Act, but it's the kind of approach that we really should be following already. As the video mentions also, there are different categories of decision, and they are quite broadly defined, which are amenable to the Act. And it's in relation to decisions such as these that new support arrangements could be put in place. So looking at the personal welfare category, for the purposes of today's audience, I suppose, personal welfare is quite broadly defined. Accommodation, education and training, social services and healthcare is in there. And then that really broad catch-all, other matters relating to a person's well-being. So it's in respect of any kind of decisions coming within these two categories that any person could seek to rely on the supports offered by the Act. So thinking then about what is new, and this is where the Act is quite ambitious because it puts in place this new three-tier framework of decision supporters. That term decision supporters, by the way, is one that we have coined. There isn't a term in the Act that means all of these, but it describes these different levels of support which can be made available. And at the lowest tier, as you see there, we have the decision-making assistant, that person who can be appointed by the relevant person. The relevant person, by the way, is a term within the Act, which means the person whose capacity is or may be called into question. So that person can ask for a decision-making assistant to enter into an arrangement so that they can help obtain and explain information and help the relevant person communicate their decision. So the relevant person, herself or himself, is still the decision maker, and that's unarguable. At the middle tier then you have co-decision making, where, as the name suggests, decisions are made jointly by way of a registered arrangement. And then at the upper tier there is still, should it arise, and it should only be as a last resort, there's an opportunity for the court to appoint somebody to be a formal decision-making representative, and that person takes their authority from a court order. So this puts in place formal structures where currently we really often don't have formality, and I know that contributors to the video have mentioned that as well, that this is an opportunity to have certainty where currently we have custom and practice instead. And these arrangements will all be supervised by the service of which I'm director, the Decision Support Service. They have to follow those guiding principles, which you've heard about in the video. And at the heart of those guiding principles, at the heart of UN CRPD, is this idea of giving effect to past and present will and preferences as far as is practicable. And the Act also has important things to say about advanced planning. As we were saying, anybody could, at some point in their lives, lose their decision-making capacity, that ability to understand, weigh up information, to retain it and to communicate what it is that they want to do. So it's really important that we are amenable to planning ahead, and the Act expands our opportunities to do so. Enduring powers of attorney already exist. They've existed at law in Ireland for more than 20 years at this point, and they're somewhat expanded under this Act so that when you have your capacity, you can appoint an attorney who can now also take healthcare decisions on your behalf. Healthcare isn't covered by EPAs as we have them at the moment. And I know that both Margaret and Veronica in their contributions to the video have mentioned that importance and that security that comes with knowing that you can plan ahead and choose somebody you trust who can formally step in to make decisions should you lack the capacity at a future point to do so. And attorneys under the new Act will be subject to new reporting requirements and to supervision, a level of regulation that doesn't exist under current legislation. The other important mechanism for advanced planning in the Act, and again they're mentioned in the video, is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. And the purpose is stated as being to enable persons to be treated according to their will and preference with regard to their treatment choices, and to provide healthcare professionals with information about those treatment choices. And Dr. Billy O'Connell references in the video how important that is, and from the point of view of the providers of treatment. So that a refusal of treatment contained in an AHD is just the same as a refusal made contemporaneously by a person with capacity. So it's an opportunity for you to set out in writing, in a binding instrument, what you want to happen should you lose capacity, so that your voice can really be heard at a future point in respect of those treatment decisions. And there's also an opportunity under the new Act then to appoint somebody called a designated healthcare representative who's able to step in and ensure that your AHD is followed and respected. So a word or two then about the Decision Support Service. It is located in the Mental Health Commission, as you've heard, and I think that's proved to be a very good home for it. The Mental Health Commission has important experience of taking human rights-based legislation and building reforming structures around it, but clearly what the Decision Support Service will do takes the Commission in quite a new direction and is beyond the remit of mental health regulation. Our aim is for an accessible, very much person-centred service. You've heard a bit about what our functions are, and they include promoting awareness and confidence, providing vital information about the Act to the relevant persons and their supporters. We have that regulatory function around registering and supervising the decision support arrangements, and there's a complaints and investigations function. So if those arrangements aren't going well, if there's some concern about those, then we're able to process complaints about those and put things to right. And we have an important job to support organisational change so that relevant persons can exercise their capacity. And I think it's important to say, as I have before, that in a way, in the title of this Act, the brackets are really important. So it's the Assisted Decision Making (brackets) Capacity Act. The Act was going to be called the Mental Capacity Act. And I think it would be wrong to assume that this is a piece of legislation which is just about a new way of assessing capacity or a new tool for accessing consent. As the title of the Act suggests, there is a key focus on supporting people in their autonomous decision making. That should always be the first step to help people participate as far as possible in the decisions that matter to them in their lives. Similarly, the Decision Support Service at one stage was going to be called the Office of Public Guardian, which is what it's called in other jurisdictions. And the feeling was that that was overtly paternalistic, if you like, and that Decision Support Service much better describes its function and its priorities. We also have a piece of work which will be coming up to publish codes of practice, which I think will provide important guidance to health and social care professionals, to people themselves who are going to have to engage with the Act, the new decision supporters, and there is also to be codes of practice for sectoral use, for example, for legal professions, for financial services professionals, because this Act really does apply across a multitude of sectors and areas of practice. There will be a public consultation, I should say, before those codes of practice are published and finalised. So that is us. The Decision Support Service website launched last month, and I put up the web address there. And in it, you will also find information on the Act and what one can be doing to get ready for when it's rolled out. So thank you very much for your time today. I hope that is of some assistance. And once again, my compliments to the team in the HSE for putting together this video. Great work has been done there, and for being so creative about mobilising this event virtually. And I wish everybody well, and the Decision Support Service is at your service as well if any further queries arise. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anya, and thank you for setting out all of the work that's taken place even though we don't have full commencement, that doesn't mean that things aren't happening behind the scenes. And I think it's very helpful just to see all of the work that's happening. And we had a question there in terms of when do we expect commencement? So the government have committed to early 2022, but it's contingent on quite a number of things, that the DSS is fully funded, that the court service are ready for the dissolution of wardship. So there's a number of things that have to be put in place, but essentially that is the official commitment from government in relation to commencement. So thank you. Thank you, Anya. Now we're going to move to the contributions from three of the groups that participated in the video. We've a very good spread of people from all over the country in relation to the participation on the video. And we're going to start with Margaret Sweeney, who joins us from Carlow. She describes herself as an advocate of the recovery model and co-production in mental health. She's recently started work as a recovery education facilitator with the Recovery College in the Southeast. And I'm going to hand you over to Margaret. Hopefully we'll have no sound glitches there.
Okay, I'm just going to give you a little synopsis of my story. So bear with me, I'm a bit nervous, so I'll just read down. I just wrote a few notes. I remember in 1981, an enthusiastic, free, fun-loving girl taking a plane to England to start my life at 17 years of age. I was going to change the world. Leaving a warm, lovable, happy home, one of 8 children, my parents encouraged us towards education, travel and fun. I left for England to train as a psychiatric nurse, where I worked hard, partied, socialised, studied. I met Porrick at 21 years of age, fell in love, got engaged in Paris and got married on my birthday, so we'd have no excuse for forgetting our anniversary. Had 2 children, Pat and Fergus, bought our dream home, had the credit union loan, 2 cars sitting outside the door, the mortgage, living very much as most of my colleagues and friends. After 2 traumatic births, 4 years later at the age of 33, my life was to change totally. At 33 years of age, I had my first psychotic episode. During this time and for the next 8 years of my life, was to be paralysed by mental illness, spiraling out of control, and during this time I was at risk of losing my children, my husband, my home, all my colleagues, friends and family. I was diagnosed during this time as a persecuted paranoid psychotic schizophrenic. I lost my job and had financial problems. My journey took me to police stations, women's refuges, homeless B&Bs, solicitor's office, courtrooms, and eventually a bedsit attached to the side of a house. I left the hospital the last time 15 years ago, where I couldn't even afford a pack of cigarettes. But something else happened during that last admission. I met a lovely psychiatrist who put down the pen and treated me like a human being, not a diagnosis. And Porrick, who I thought it was a burden on, cried one night that he needed me. I went home from the hospital and started to take notes of my life. I couldn't even clean, wash, cook, clean my toilets. The house was in disarray with Porrick trying to work with my 2 small kids, with no family support. I reached out to a neighbour called Mary, who had used the services for 6 months. She became my sole peer support. Here I rocked, shucked and talked, and over many cigarettes, most of my problems seemed to abate. Mary accepted me non-judgmentally, and through this friendship I learned how to rear my teenage children, clean my toilets, cook, iron a shirt. I somehow began to trust the world again and looked outward instead of inward. According to my nurses, I was maintaining well. But after meeting a little nurse called Claire Fitzpatrick 5 years ago, I realised I wasn't just maintaining, I was recovering from trauma in my life. After attending services for 23 years, where all I was offered was OPDs and medication, I became frustrated with this approach. I discussed these frustrations with this nurse, who was supporting me in my home at the time as my CPN. Not only did she listen to me, but she started me on a journey where I was to learn about myself and my mental health in a whole different way. She did this through choice, education and opportunity. She also accepted me not as a diagnosis, but as a person. And this sense of acceptance followed throughout the next 5 years. For the first time in years, I felt I wasn't somebody's job. She made me feel I was a capable, strong woman, and this made me change the way I looked at myself. And I started taking healthy risks with my life. She showed genuine care for my thoughts, opinions and aspirations. There was a real honesty about the relationship, and I began to feel worthy of this care and trust. I began to feel a sense of empowerment. She didn't at any level treat me like I was fragile, incompetent or incapable. And this made me feel very valued and respected.
Getting to know this nurse and the whole RE team has enhanced my recovery enormously. My husband and myself are back on track in our dream home. Both my children have achieved third-level education and have permanent jobs. I won a community award for volunteering for my service. My medication has been reduced. Life couldn't be better. And sometimes I feel like that young girl who took the plane in 1981. I feel free and in control of mental illness. I have a great sense of empowerment. What the Assisted Decision-Making Act provides me with a legal framework. If I lack capacity and when unwell, to nominate a person of my own choosing to support me in making decisions, and more importantly, to ensure that these decisions are followed through. It also means that at other times during periods of being unwell, I will be assumed to have capacity and be supported in making choices and decisions for myself. These decisions are law-abiding and must be adhered to. Example, if I had to sell my house. To go insane, to lose your grip on reality is, from my experience, one of the most frightening, painful, terrifying experiences you could have in life. To be able to even make the simplest decision, full of fear and anxiety, and for the most part alone and isolated, is very challenging. My mind has not always been my best friend. However, to presume that a person with a mental health diagnosis is capable of making decisions and choices for themselves during these periods of unwellness is inaccurate, and this needs to change. Not to live a life of your choosing and not to have control over making life choices, which is a human right in a free world, can have a disabling effect on the individual and slow down recovery. Recovery is a deeply personal and unique process. The Advanced Decision-Making Act will put the power back in my hands, where I can choose and make decisions for myself, by myself. The Assisted Decision-Making Act will support me to develop personal plans with a nominated person in the event I lack capacity. Realising for myself what supports I need in life, through recovery education and advice from peers and care providers. As I have to live with certain constraints due to the effect of my mental health challenge, I've built up a trusting relationship with my team and I feel more in control of my life. I don't know the path my mental health will take in the future, but I feel with this act I will have a sense of control over how and where I'm treated, and at present have the mental capacity to put tools in place to make me secure and confident about the future. My recovery journey, as I was saying, started 7 years ago when I was given the opportunity to get involved in different recovery initiatives in my area nationally, such as setting up involvement centres, working in co-production and opening of the Recovery College South East. During this time, my confidence and personality improved. I changed the way I viewed myself. I wasn't just a person with a diagnosis of persecuted paranoid psychotic schizophrenia. I view myself now as a valued member of my mental health service. I've been recently employed as a recovery education facilitator. And through this recovery path, I don't struggle as much as I used to with my mental health. I have real trusting relationships in my life. I've expanded my social network, and my standing in my neighbourhood and community has been re-established. And through my work, I get to do something so purposeful and meaningful as to educate and connect with others on the recovery journey. Not one cap fits all, but I only can stress the importance of choice in a person's life, so they can decide what's important to them and what makes a difference. I now feel I've got a grasp on my mental health. While mental health shaped a part of my life, it doesn't define me. Recovery is challenging, but life is meant to be challenging. It's also quite challenging living a life of isolation without friends or support, and not having the chance to learn, change and grow beyond the catastrophic effects of a mental health challenge. This act means I can choose the path that suits me and my life goals, and make my future more hopeful. Thank you, Margaret Sweeney. Thank you very much for listening.
So I'm speechless, Margaret. That was absolutely fantastic. And what a beautifully written contribution. We're so grateful for your honesty and the depth of thought that you put into that. Thank you so much. I think some of the comments, people are saying they're quite moved by it. I'm quite moved by it. Thank you again. So
okay.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And again, I suppose just to say, people's this act and the work that we're trying to do is about people's lives. This is real lives and the reality of people's lives. And I think that this is what we're trying to convey today, that this is not some kind of arbitrary act. It is about putting the person at the centre and ensuring that they remain at the centre in control of their lives. So to move on, we're moving now down to County Cork, to Bantry in West Cork, the beautiful Bantry, which I go to every year. And we're going to join Mary and Damien O'Donovan. from their beautiful town of Bantry. Damien is a healthcare assistant in the West Lodge Hotel in Bantry and is a very keen GAA fan. While Mary is passionate about Damien's right to live the best life, his best life and their best life in their own community. So over to you, Mary and Damien. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Right. Can you hear us? We had trouble with our video earlier on. Can you hear us from this distance?
We can.
Yeah, okay.
My name is Damien O'Donovan. I'll tell you a bit about my life. I work as a pool attendant at West Lodge Hotel since 2012. I am a coach with Entrepreneurs GA 112 team. I have awards for Manager of the Year twice. I have a few makers from Special Olympics. I was involved in GA both versus the boxers, and I got an award for most popular actor. I have my bronze and silver and gold Gaza award from the president. I am involved in Buckfox Cafe with my Bob Barry.
Thanks, Emma. Emma, who makes the decisions in your life?
I make my own choice.
Why so?
Because it's in my business.
That's fine. Tim is too modest to tell you that one of his medals is a world gold medal for swimming, and also that when he did his gold Goshka, he raised over €6,000 for charity. That's just a flavour of Damien's life. Damien's very clear that this is his life and it's created by his decisions. He's an awesome human being. He's a great son. He's a very valued employee. He's got to go to work this afternoon. He had to swap his shifts from the morning until the afternoon. He's great crack, especially after a few pints. He's a loyal and true friend. And amongst his other talents, he is a great decision maker. We've always operated on the basis that Damien has the ability to make his own decisions and that he would lead and direct his own life. And he developed a very effective strategy many, many years ago. When we'd ask him to do something, to make a decision, he'd say, I'll think about that. And Damien thinks about it in his own good time. You might wait a few days or a few weeks. You might check in and say, Damien, did you think about that? Not yet. And you'll get the decision eventually. May not be the decision you want, but we trust that it's always the right decision for Damien. I know Damien really well, think I know him really well, but I don't really know Damien's feelings. I don't know what Damien feels. Only Damien knows what he feels. And he's got a real deep sense of himself. And he knows what's right for him. And why wouldn't he? I heard someone saying a long time ago that decision-making is like a muscle. It needs exercising to be fit for purpose. And Damien has an extremely well-developed decision-making muscle. Decisions come in all shapes and sizes. The daily decisions just happen. Damien runs his life completely independently. And a lot of other people's lives around him hinge on his decisions and his remembering things as well. But this act, I suppose, is more for us about the big decisions. And we had a bit of one of those decisions this year during the pandemic. So Damien was let go from the West Lodge early on in the hotel when they closed the leisure centre, when COVID-19 took off. And that was really a difficult time to be off work and the GA was gone. So we all struggled in that space and Damien struggled, as did the rest of us. So then when it became apparent that the West Lodge was going to open up again and Damien was going back to work, we were worried. Perhaps thought that maybe that was a bit of a risky environment for him to be going into, a hotel where there was tourists coming from different areas. And when we spoke to Damien about the possibility of perhaps maybe getting a job somewhere else, maybe going back to college and doing something different, he just wouldn't hear about it. He was very clear that he was going to go back to work. And that's what he did. And he was right. Ultimately, it's his life. He made that decision and he was very clear. He wasn't entertaining anything else. He had a conviction that this was the right thing for him. And he was right. He went back to work, and everybody in that space has been absolutely fine. And could we have put a lot of pressure on Damien to try and make him do something different? We probably could have done. An awful lot of pressure. And would he have caved? Perhaps he would, but that wouldn't have been the right thing to do. I remember hearing somebody say quite some time ago, a gilded cage is still a cage. There's no point in us keeping Damien safe here at home when he wants to live his life. I certainly wouldn't be disagreeing with you, Anya, but I've stopped calling this the Assisted Decision-Making Act. I used to call it the Act of Emancipation, and now I call it the Capacity Act. So I worry sometimes that people are going to hear this about jumping in and assisting people to make a decision, although I know and respect absolutely and trust that that support is going to be there when it's needed. But for me, firstly, I hear about it being the presumption of capacity, unless proven otherwise. No longer are people guilty until they can prove their innocence. I was talking to a dad recently, and he talked about his son nearly being over the line. And I really struggled with that line. This line that says that now you're normal, but for some assessment or some condition, you've crossed the line into some other space where all of a sudden, all your capacity can automatically be up for question. I believe that this act should help to stop that line. I really struggle to articulate how profoundly important it is that Damien's personhood is never diminished by anyone. I love phrases like autonomy and self-determination, but they don't convey the feeling well enough. I was chatting to one of Damien's sisters last week, and I was asking her, how can I try and make people understand in this webinar how profoundly important it is that Damien makes his own decisions? And she said, Mum, it's very easy. We just want Damien to live his true life. And that's it. Just like us all, Damien's only going to travel this road once, and what an absolute tragedy if he never got to do it his way. Can I tell them about the Under-12s match on Monday? Is that okay? So Damien coaches the Under-12s. He's one of the coaches in the Under-12s, and they lost the game on Monday evening. They lost it by a fair chunk. And Damien was really upset when he came home, and it was the following evening before he could tell me why he was so upset. The guys were really disappointed, and one of them started to cry. And Damien got so upset because you felt you couldn't go over to him. Why? Why couldn't you go over to him?
Because social distancing.
Social distancing. So this guy's empathy and courage and showing up every day of his life is just awesome. And that's Damien. That's Damien's way. That's the way he's developed his personality over his life. And by God, does he get social distancing, I tell you. My worry would be that sometime, for whatever reason, someone else might make a decision for Damien. A decision that doesn't fit with Damien's deep sense of himself. I don't pretend to know anything about the thousands of people who benefit from this act. But from our little corner of West Cork, my earnest wish is that those who guard the act have the time, respect, humility, and all the other attributes that they might need to fulfill the spirit of the act. Because I believe that this act should mean that even over my dead body, no one will make a decision for Damien that is not in keeping with his life, his true wishes and preferences, his way. I want to take this opportunity to thank the many, many people who have worked and continue to work so hard to effect the legislation. And I wish you all the very best with the implementation of this act. As Damien says, he has the same rights as everybody. It's his life.
Nothing about me, not me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary and Damien and Mary. As usual, you're both so inspirational for us. And I remember being on a training course with you, Mary, a few years ago, when you said to me, we only have the one life. We only have the one life. And that's always stayed with me. And you said it again, Damien has the right to live his true life. And I think that, that's a very simple message. And again, you're both just, you're your generosity of your story and sharing your life with us is so important, I think, to make this so real for people in terms of how important this act is for people's lives. So thank you again so much. And Damien, thank you so much for taking the morning off. We really appreciate it. And I'm delighted that you got to go back to work, because I know how important that is to you. So well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to go to Germany, where we're joined by the Shaler family. Are the Shalers with us? I think they are. So we have Pádraig, Reinhard and Pat are joining us from Germany, where Pádraig is making good recovery following surgery. Home is in Dublin, where Pádraig lives with Pat, who's a full-time carer, and Reinhard, who runs Unsail Foundation, and they'll say a little bit more about that. We're so pleased that you're able to join us today, particularly from Germany as well. So thank you so much, and over to yourselves.
Well, thank you very much, Kiva. So we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences, and especially Pádraig's experience with decision making. When someone sees Pádraig, with his eyes half closed, with little movement and no voice, they often think he can't hear, listen, read, understand, reason, or decide. Assumptions help us to understand the world around us, but they can also limit, and sometimes dangerously limit, our capacity to look a bit closer, to see the zebra galloping down the savannah in Dublin Zoo, or to allow Pádraig an opportunity to live his life, to offer him inclusion, equality, participation and self-determination.
I think this act is particularly relevant for people with a brain injury, because most decisions for them are made without them, because there is this assumption, as Reinhard said, that Pádraig isn't in a position to make his own decisions. There was one example of this we had when Pádraig was in Beaumont Hospital in the neuro ward, that a group, there were nurses, carers, were standing around his bed in a very friendly and supportive way, and they asked us, and what nursing home is Pádraig going to? Now, I know myself, I was shocked at the idea of nursing home, but for Pádraig, this must have been the shock of his life, because Pádraig from the beginning could understand. It wasn't even the question what nursing home he was going to, it was just the assumption he's going to a nursing home. And it never occurred to any of these, and the staff there were very caring, that maybe we could try to communicate with him in the same ways we communicate with him if we want to wash his teeth. We say, open your mouth. But we could also ask him, would you like to go to a nursing home? And as it happened, Pádraig didn't. We had another example a day, and again, it's from somebody from a very well-meaning place, when we went over to vote, and we were trying to get into the school, the polling station, which wasn't very accessible, and a neighbour came up and said, oh Pat, you go in, I can wait here with Pádraig. I said, but Pádraig wants to vote. Pádraig is more informed probably than I was, always has been very interested in politics, and has always voted. And there is that assumption there that, well, because you have a brain injury, therefore you don't want to participate in that way in society, whereas he most definitely does.
One of the key words in the new Act is assisted decision making. We have learned that this assistance must come from somebody who knows the person very well and understands them, especially for those in a similar situation to Pádraig's. Otherwise, big misunderstandings can happen. Here's one example.
Yeah, there's so many examples that happen with Pádraig, with people who don't know him very well. Sometimes it's with people who don't even just wait the time he might need to come forward with his answer. But there was one case where a therapist came in, and she was teaching him how to use an alphabet board, and asked him to come up with an appropriate adjective to describe different members of his family. So we started with his sister, and she was funny. He'd gone through a few others, and then he said, and what about your mother? And he started S, M, A, and the therapist, trying to predict what he was going to say, said smart.
And I knew by the look on Porrick's face, and also that he wouldn't be inclined to flatter me in my presence, that maybe there was another possibility. So I said, just hang on a minute. And I said, what's the fourth letter? And it was L. And I knew the adjective he was looking for me was small. But I knew that because unlike the therapist who knew her job, but I knew that because I knew him. And there are so many cases like that the person who knows him can decide so much better what he wants to say.
You know, over time we have learned that Porrick can read, understand and solve complex problems. He can read questions and using a switch, no switch here, the bleeper, he can pick the right answer. His sense of humour and language preferences have not changed. If you asked him to spell his name and you expect P followed by an A, you will learn that he prefers an A father. He still likes his mother to speak to him in English, his father in German, and his friends in Asgaira. We've learned that the biggest barrier for him to express himself and fully participate in conversations is our capacity to provide him with the adequate means. That is why we are constantly on the lookout for new technologies, like the handshoe mouse that we found during the summer, or leading edge research translating cortical activity into text, in other words, translating thoughts into speech.
I think as well as sort of the whole idea of assisted decision making involves not just taking the time to help these people, but it's also to change our mindset. Because just for so long, these decisions have been made, we've never questioned the good place that decision makers were usually coming from. But I think it's something for staff, and somebody mentioned this earlier in the presentation, that people do need to change as well. The professionals need to change their whole mindset, their whole attitude that has always been there. And this Act, I think, will greatly facilitate people to rethink and to look at their own attitudes towards people with disability making decisions. I mean, I think it calls for a big effort from all of us.
And for us as family members, the Act marks a radical step in the right direction. We look forward to Porrick's participation and inclusion in his affairs, soon to be legally recognised in Ireland. We look forward to not having to fear that outside bodies or persons may take decisions against Porrick's wishes, decisions which may not be in his best interest. It is a source of joy and relief to us that his decisions will finally be respected legally as well. Not only horses gallop, and not only those with a clear voice and their eyes wide open can hear, understand, read, reason and decide.
Yeah. And Porrick firmly believes that there is no decision about him without him. Do you agree? Yes. Do you agree very strongly? Yes, one bleep is yes, two is no. Just one final thing I think is worth saying is that with assisted decision making, that the person assisting, we mentioned that they should be somebody familiar to them, and often that person is not a legal person, is not the staff of an institution. It could be a carer. Quite often it's a family member or a friend. It doesn't have to be a professional, and I think that's very important to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Porrick. Thank you for that. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Reiner. Thank you so much for always supporting the work that we're doing, for being so open about your family, about Porrick's story, Porrick being so open about your story. It's these stories that change our lives and I change our practice, and And I really appreciate you taking the time today, because I know you're in Germany and I know that you're in hospital, or in a rehab hospital. So like from the bottom of my heart, I'm so thankful for the efforts that you made today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so so that's our contribution. Now, Mary's sound is a little bit of background noise with Mary's sound, so just bear with us with it. We haven't yet worked out what's going on with Mary's computer. So Mary Donnelly, Professor Mary Donnelly, joins us from Cork City today. She's the chair of many committees relating to the Assisted Decision Making Act and the consent policy. Mary's written and advised on many policy issues relating to mental health law, decision-making capacity, the role of family in decision-making, among many other issues. And she's chaired all of the groups that have produced the draft healthcare codes and non-healthcare codes for the Assisted Decision Making Act. So we're delighted to have Mary here today. And Mary, you have a tough act to follow, tough 3 acts to follow. So thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you.
I'm not even going to try, Caoimhe. They were hugely impressive and moving contributions, and thank you very much to all of the participants today. I thought the video could not be bettered. It's a wonderful video, but I think today's presentations add a further layer and help us even better in our understanding of why this work, which we're all engaged with in different ways, is so important. I think the HSE was prescient in recognising the importance of its contribution to delivering on the vision which the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act sets out for us all. For many people, HSE services will be their first and most important engagement with the Act's vision. And that vision is of an inclusive, empowering reframing of how we think about issues of capacity. Since 2016, the National Office for Human Rights and Equality Policy, with the support of Dr. Philip Crowley and the Quality Improvement Division, has been working to develop codes and guidance. This has been very exciting and demanding work in many ways, but it will ensure that the HSE is able to hit the ground running when the Act commences in 2022. However, the ongoing work is about more than 2022. It is about starting the process of change now. And that's something which the National Office for Human Rights and Equality Policy has been working to drive, because we don't have to wait until 2022 to deliver a more inclusive, more empowering approach to health and social care. That's something which many people are doing at the moment and which we can continue to do in all sorts of ways while we await the commencement of the Act. When I first saw this video, the thought I had was that this puts the human into human rights. Because human rights can sometimes seem like an abstract or a legal concept even. But this video and today's presentation reinforces this. It reminds us that people are at the heart of a human rights-based approach to health and social care. I hope very much that this video and these presentations will be widely viewed, especially by those who have the power to make decisions in relation to the Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act. People who will have the power to ensure or deliver on this as a meaningful change or as some window dressing. So I hope that politicians will get a chance to see this video and these presentations, policymakers and judges, the judges who will be hearing cases in relation to this Act in the years to come. Because we still have a long way to go in delivering on the approach to health and social care, which the participants in this video and these presentations need and deserve. Changes to practice do not come overnight, but by listening to the stories of love, support and survival in this video and these presentations, we are reminded of why it is so important for us to persevere on this journey.